The Celestia's warning light pierced through the darkness of deep space, its sleek obsidian hull absorbing nearby starlight as it approached the coordinates of distress. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing dozens of damaged communication relays scattered across this sector of space. Something had systematically targeted these vital links between civilizations, and humanity's first official contact with the galactic community was about to be under far different circumstances than anyone had planned. Multiple signatures detected ahead, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported from his station, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. They matched the distress beacon's frequency. Looks like we found what's left of the Galactic Council's response fleet. The main viewport revealed a graveyard of alien vessels, their exotic designs now twisted and scarred. The Council ships, each one representing a different member species, drifted silently in the void, their systems barely functioning. What caught Sarah's attention wasn't the damage, but the precision of it. Whatever had attacked these ships had deliberately disabled rather than destroyed them. Life signs? Sarah asked, maintaining her composed demeanor despite the gravity of the situation. Strong readings from all vessels, Marcus confirmed. Their containment fields are holding, but main power is offline. They're running on emergency systems only. Dr. Amara Patel, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward from her observation post. Her voice carried the excitement of scientific discovery, even in this tense moment. Commander, these designs, they're exactly what our long-range observations suggested. Multiple species working together, each contributing their specialized technology. This is the Galactic Council we've been watching for the past decade. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's next move resting on her shoulders. Earth's governments had chosen to wait, to observe and learn before making contact. Now circumstances had forced their hand. Send the greeting package on all frequencies, including our emergency protocols. Let's show them we're here to help. The response was immediate and desperate, coming in multiple alien languages that the ship's AI translated in real time. Their observers had done their work well, they understood every word. Unknown vessel, came the primary transmission, this sector is under attack by automated weapons of unknown origin. We strongly advise you to retreat to safe space. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. This is Commander Chen of the Earth vessel Celestia's warning light. We've monitored the situation and are here to render assistance. Stand by for emergency power transfer and technical support teams. The silence that followed was telling. Earth had kept itself hidden well, watching and learning about the galactic community from afar. Now, in their moment of crisis, an unknown species had appeared with technology that could safely approach whatever had disabled their most advanced ships. Processing power at your disposal, Commander, announced the ship's AI, Nova. I've analyzed the attack patterns. The automated weapons appear to be targeting specific frequencies in their shield harmonics. Our variable frequency shields should protect us from similar attacks. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency as they initiated rescue operations. The Celestia's warning light's unique design, the product of humanity's paranoid preparation for worst-case scenarios, was about to prove its worth. While other species had specialized their technology, humans had insisted on redundancy, adaptability, and the ability to operate in almost any conditions. As rescue shuttles departed the main ship, Sarah received the first visual communication from the disabled Council vessels. The alien faces displayed a mix of relief and shock as they saw their rescuers for the first time. Humans, after all, looked deceptively simple compared to many galactic species. You've been watching us, stated the alien commander, their translator rendering their words in perfect English. It wasn't a question. We have, Sarah admitted. Earth believed in being prepared before making first contact. Though we'd hoped for different circumstances. The alien commander's expression shifted in a way Sarah couldn't quite interpret. Then you know what we face. These attacks have severed crucial communication lines between Council worlds. Our fastest ships can't catch the weapons platforms, and our strongest weapons can't penetrate their shields. Sarah exchanged glances with her tactical officer. We've observed the attacks, yes. And we have theories about the weapons' origins. But first, let's get your people to safety. Then we can discuss how humanity might help address this threat. As the rescue operations continued, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Humanity had spent years preparing for first contact, developing technologies and protocols for every imaginable scenario. They'd watched, learned, and prepared. Now they would make their entrance onto the galactic stage not as supplicants or equals, but as saviors. The Celestia's warning light sensors continued scanning the debris field, building a complete picture of the attack pattern. Already, Nova was identifying weaknesses in the automated weapons programming, patterns that might reveal their origin. Humanity's paranoid preparation and insistence on understanding potential threats was about to pay off in ways no one had expected. "Commander," Nova announced, "I'm detecting another wave of automated weapons approaching. Based on their trajectory, they're targeting the next sector's communication hub." Sarah straightened in her command chair. "Well then, let's show our new friends what humanity can do." Battle stations. It's time to introduce ourselves properly to whatever's been causing all this trouble. The Celestia's warning lights engines hummed to life, its adaptive shields shimmering with ready power. Humanity's first official act in galactic society would be to defend it, and Sarah intended to make quite an impression. The automated weapons platforms emerged from hyperspace like dark arrows, their crystalline structures absorbing ambient light. The Council refugees watched from the safety of the Celestia's warning light as humanity prepared for their first interstellar combat. "Analysis complete," Nova announced, projecting a detailed hologram of the enemy vessels. Their shield frequency shifts follow a predictable pattern, despite appearing random at first glance. They're using an outdated encryption algorithm, one humans cracked centuries ago in computer science classes. Commander Chen's lips curved into a slight smile. What seemed advanced to the Council was practically ancient history to humanity. "Upload the decryption key to weapons control. Time to show them our own little trick." The Celestia's warning light's main weapon wasn't particularly powerful by Council standards. What made it special was its ability to adapt, a reflection of humanity's own greatest strength. As the weapon platforms approached, charging their disabling beams, the human ship's systems were already adjusting. "They're targeting our shield harmonics," Marcus reported from Tactical. "Same attack pattern they used on the Council ships." "Let them try," Sarah responded. "Nova, initiate Protocol Chameleon." The ship's shields began cycling through frequencies faster than the enemy weapons could adapt, a technique born from humanity's long history of electronic warfare. When the platforms fired their disabling beams, the energy simply scattered harmlessly across the shield surface. The Council representatives, watching from the observation deck, murmured in amazement. High Admiral Zyx Tau, a being of living crystal who commanded the disabled Council fleet, turned to Dr. Patel. "Your shields, they're unlike anything we've encountered. How did you develop such technology?" Amara smiled, remembering countless war games and simulations back on Earth. "We assumed any sufficiently advanced enemy would try to hack or disable our systems. So we made them unhackable by making them constantly change. It's actually based on how our immune systems fight disease." The enemy platforms, their primary strategy failed, switched to conventional weapons. But the Celestia's warning light was already moving, displaying maneuverability that should have been impossible for a ship its size. Sarah had trained her crew for exactly this kind of situation. "Target locked," Marcus announced. "Ready to demonstrate our own little surprise." Sarah nodded. "Fire the pulse." The human ship's main weapon activated, sending out what appeared to be a relatively weak energy burst. But this pulse carried within it millions of lines of code, a virus designed to exploit the very weakness Nova had identified. The platform's ancient encryption couldn't stand against centuries of human cybersecurity evolution. One by one, the automated weapons began to power down, their systems overwhelmed by the complexity of the human attack. The council representatives watched in stunned silence as humanity defeated in minutes what had been terrorizing their space for months. Impressive, HFY admitted, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that suggested deep thought. But I must ask, how did your species develop such capabilities? Your ship, your tactics, they speak of a people who have faced great challenges. Sarah exchanged glances with her crew before responding. Admiral, humanity evolved on what you might call a death world. Earth's gravity is higher than galactic standard, our atmosphere is rich in corrosive oxygen, and our planet experiences everything from devastating storms to massive tectonic shifts. We had to adapt to survive. The admission sent shock waves through the council representatives. Their own species had evolved on worlds carefully selected by ancient terraformers for optimal conditions. The idea of intelligence emerging from such a hostile environment was almost incomprehensible. That explains much, HFY said slowly. Your ship's construction, your crew's physical capabilities, your adaptive technology, they're all products of evolution in extreme conditions. We call it survival of the fittest, Amara explained. It's not just our bodies that evolved under pressure, but our minds and our technology too. We learn to adapt, to overcome, to turn hostile conditions into advantages. As if to emphasize her point, the ship's sensors detected another wave of platforms emerging from hyperspace. This time, they had adjusted their attack pattern, but humanity had already anticipated this. They're learning, Marcus reported with professional admiration. But so are we. Nova has already analyzed their adaptations and developed countermeasures. Sarah took her command chair, ready for round 2. That's the thing about humans, Admiral. We don't just adapt to survive, we thrive on challenges. Each obstacle makes us stronger, smarter, more innovative. These platforms are about to learn that the hard way. The Celestia's warning light moved to engage the new threat, its systems already evolving to meet the challenge. In the observation deck, the council representatives began to understand that they weren't just witnessing a rescue mission, they were seeing the emergence of a species that could fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the true masters of the automated platforms were about to learn a crucial lesson: humanity was not just another spacefaring species. They were the descendants of a world that had tried its best to kill them, and they had not just survived, they had conquered it. The galaxy would never be the same. Nova's quantum processors worked through the data recovered from the disabled platforms, piecing together fragments of ancient code. On the Celestia's warning lights bridge, Commander Chen watched as patterns emerged from the chaos. The coding structure is organic, Nova reported, displaying complex algorithms that twisted and flowed like living things. These platforms weren't simply programmed, they were grown. The technology suggests they're remnants of something far older than the Council. The ship had tracked the platform's origin to a distant sector of space, beyond the Council's normal patrol routes. The massive structure they discovered there hung in the void like a sleeping leviathan, a space station larger than anything humanity had ever encountered. Energy readings are off the scale, Marcus said from his station. The station's core is still active after what must be millions of years. Whatever built this place, they weren't messing around. Admiral HFY's crystalline form shimmered with concern. This sector was marked as forbidden in our oldest records. Now we know why. The ancients left guardians. Sarah studied the holographic display of the station. Its architecture was both beautiful and terrifying, organic curves blended with geometric precision in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Not guardians, she corrected. This is an automated defense system that's lost its original purpose. The platforms aren't protecting anything, they're acting on corrupted protocols. Dr. Patel's eyes lit up with scientific excitement. The station's design, it's responding to our presence. The patterns in its outer hull are shifting, like neurons firing in a brain. The station suddenly blazed with energy, and new platforms began emerging from its manufacturing bays. But these were different, larger, more advanced. The station was adapting, just as humanity had adapted to Earth's challenges. It's learning from our previous encounters, Nova announced. These new platforms incorporate countermeasures against our tactics. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Good. So are we. She turned to Admiral Zyxtal. Admiral, your people have avoided this threat for generations. We're going to need everything you know about the ancients who built this place. The Admiral's crystalline surface rippled. We have myths, fragments of records. They were called the Shapers, beings who could manipulate matter and energy at will. They seeded the galaxy with life, created the worlds where most council species evolved. Then they vanished, leaving only their machines behind. Not vanished, Sarah corrected, watching the station's reactions. They evolved. Transcended their physical forms. But they left their tools behind, and those tools are still trying to follow outdated protocols. The new platforms surrounded the Celestia's warning light, their weapons charged. But humanity had come prepared for escalation. Sarah nodded to Marcus, who activated their latest adaptation. The human ship's hull began to shimmer, its surface taking on properties similar to the ancient station. It wasn't quite the same technology, humanity couldn't replicate that level of advancement yet. But they could imitate it well enough to confuse the platform's targeting systems. The station's trying to communicate, Nova reported suddenly. But not with us. It's searching for its creators using quantum frequencies we've never seen before. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. Can we answer? Inadvisable, Nova responded. The station's core programming is so corrupted that any response would likely trigger its maximum defensive protocols. We need to understand more about its original purpose. Dr. Patel stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the shifting patterns of the station's hull. Commander, look at how it reacts to different signals. It's not just defending, it's searching. These platforms aren't weapons, they're probes. The station is looking for something specific. The revelation hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. It's looking for signs of the Shaper's evolution. Testing species to see if they've reached the right level of advancement. She turned to Admiral Zyxtal. Your people were given perfect worlds, designed to nurture life. But humanity, we evolved on a world that forced us to adapt or die. We had to shape ourselves. The station's energy readings spiked again, but this time the pattern was different. It had detected something in the human ship's adaptive systems that resonated with its ancient protocols. It recognizes us, Sarah breathed. Not as the Shapers themselves, but as something following their path. Evolution through adversity, adaptation through challenge. The platforms suddenly stood down, their weapons powering off. The station's surface rippled with new patterns, its ancient systems acknowledging humanity's presence in a way they never had with the Council species. We can shut it down, Sarah realized. Not by fighting it, but by showing it that its mission is complete. Evolution didn't stop with the Shapers, it continued through us, through every species that learned to adapt and grow. As the Celestia's warning lights crew worked to communicate with the ancient station, Sarah couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons, but their ability to understand and adapt. They had evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill them, and in doing so, had become exactly what the Shapers were looking for. The galaxy's greatest threat was about to become its greatest repository of knowledge, all because humanity had learned to see patterns where others saw only chaos. The age of the Council's comfortable stability was ending, and an era of evolution and adaptation was about to begin. The ancient station's core pulsed with blinding light as centuries of dormant systems awakened. The Celestia's warning light hung in space before it, human ingenuity facing off against the legacy of the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. Final security protocols initiating, Nova announced, tracking massive energy buildups throughout the station. It's not just testing us anymore. It's challenging us to prove we're ready for what the Shapers left behind. Commander Chen watched as new platforms emerged from the station, these ones different from any they'd encountered before. They moved with impossible grace, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal. They're not attacking, she observed. They're waiting. Dr. Patel's fingers flew across her console as she analyzed the readings. The station's quantum core is generating patterns similar to biological neural networks. It's not just a machine anymore, it's evolving, just like the Shapers intended. The platforms arranged themselves in a complex three-dimensional pattern around the human ship and the remaining council vessels. Admiral Zewextal's crystalline form vibrated with nervous energy. "Commander, what is it doing?" "It's creating a test environment," Sarah replied, understanding flowing through her mind. The Shapers didn't want to just find advanced civilizations, they wanted to find ones that could think like they did. That could see patterns in chaos and adapt to the impossible. The space between the platforms suddenly lit up with energy fields more complex than anything humanity had encountered. The fields began to shift and change, creating a maze of deadly force that constantly rearranged itself. "Conventional weapons and shields are useless," Marcus reported. "These fields operate on principles we've never seen before." Sarah smiled. "Then we'll have to do what humanity does best, adapt and overcome. Nova, initiate Protocol Phoenix." The Celestia's warning light systems began to transform. Instead of trying to match the ancient technology's power, they focused on understanding its patterns. The ship's adaptive hull started resonating with the energy fields, learning their rhythm. "The station's not trying to destroy us," Dr. Patel realized, watching the data streams. "It's teaching us. Every pattern is a piece of Shaper knowledge, encoded in pure energy." Sarah nodded. "And we're going to learn fast. Nova, begin geometric analysis. Find the pattern within the pattern." The ship's AI processed the information at quantum speeds, identifying underlying structures in the seemingly random energy maze. "Pattern identified," Nova announced. "The fields aren't just barriers, they're a language." The Shapers encoded their legacy in pure mathematics. The council representatives watched in amazement as the human ship began to move through the deadly maze, not by fighting against it, but by becoming part of its pattern. The Celestia's warning light's hull rippled and flowed, adapting to each new configuration before it formed. "We're not just passing their test," Sarah realized. "We're proving we understand what they were trying to create, life that could evolve beyond its origins, species that could rewrite their own rules." The station's core pulsed again, and the energy fields began to collapse inward, creating a tunnel that led directly to the station's heart. An invitation. "Commander," Nova reported, "I'm detecting massive data transfers. The station is offering us access to its core systems, all of them." Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. This was what humanity had prepared for, though they'd never known it. Their ships weren't built to be perfect, they were built to change, to adapt, to evolve. Just like humanity itself. "Take us in," she ordered. "But carefully. The final test might be recognizing when we're not ready for everything they left behind." The Celestia's warning light glided through the tunnel of energy, its systems in harmony with the ancient technology around it. The Council ships followed in their wake, protected by the human vessel's adaptive field. Inside the station's core, they found not weapons or power sources, but something far more valuable, knowledge. The Shapers hadn't left behind tools of destruction, but seeds of evolution. The automated platforms weren't meant to prevent access, but to ensure that only species who understood true adaptation could reach this point. They weren't looking for successors, Sarah said softly, watching as the station's core revealed its secrets. They were looking for students. Species that could learn to reshape reality itself, not through overwhelming power, but through understanding and adaptation. The station's final protocols activated, but not as weapons. Instead, they began transferring data, not just to the human ship, but to the Council vessels as well. The Shaper's legacy wasn't meant for one species alone, but for any who could prove themselves ready to evolve. As the ancient knowledge flowed into their systems, Sarah realized that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't in passing the test, but in helping the entire galaxy take its next step in evolution. The age of stagnation was over. The age of adaptation had begun. 2 months after the activation of the Shaper station, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Holographic displays showing evolutionary algorithms danced through the air, and the once rigid seating arrangement had been replaced by an adaptive space that shifted to accommodate each species' needs. Commander Chen stood before the assembled representatives, the station's knowledge still transforming their understanding of the universe. The Shapers didn't disappear, she explained, gesturing to a complex display of quantum patterns. They became something else entirely. And they left us a road map to follow. The council chamber itself was evidence of how much had changed. Inspired by humanity's adaptive technology and the Shaper's legacy, the various species had begun incorporating evolutionary principles into everything they built. The chamber's walls now rippled with living metal, and even the most conservative council members had embraced the possibilities of change. Our scientists have only scratched the surface of the Shaper database, Dr. Patel reported, her eyes bright with excitement. But already we're seeing applications that transform our understanding of physics, biology, even consciousness itself. The station wasn't a weapon or a library, it was an invitation to join them. Admiral Zyxtal, their crystalline form now incorporating patterns learned from the station, chimed in. My people always believed we were created perfect, that change was unnecessary. We were wrong. Perfection isn't a state, it's a process. The Celestia's warning light had become a symbol of this new understanding. Its hull now incorporated Shaper principles, not to copy their technology, but to evolve beyond it. The ship had become a living example of humanity's gift to the galaxy, the understanding that adaptation was strength. The platforms weren't attacking our communication networks, Sarah continued. They were testing our response to isolation, seeing if we could adapt to loss of contact. Every species that faced them learned something different, but humanity was the first to see the pattern behind the chaos. Nova, whose consciousness had expanded with the Shaper knowledge, projected a new set of data. We've identified 37 other stations throughout the galaxy, each containing different aspects of Shaper knowledge. They weren't building an empire, they were creating a school. The council members watched as the display showed the stations lighting up one by one. Each represented a different lesson, a different aspect of evolution and adaptation. The Shapers hadn't hoarded their knowledge, they'd hidden it in plain sight, waiting for students ready to learn. Humanity's contribution wasn't just finding the station, Sarah explained. It was showing that evolution doesn't stop. The council species were given perfect worlds, but perfection without change is stagnation. Earth forced us to adapt, to overcome, to evolve. Now we can share that gift with the galaxy. The chamber erupted in discussion, but not in the old way of political maneuvering. Ideas flowed freely, each species offering their unique perspective on evolution and adaptation. The rigid hierarchy of the past was giving way to something new, a civilization that embraced change as strength. We've received the first transmissions from the other stations, Nova announced. Each one responds differently based on the species attempting contact. The Shapers designed them to teach in ways each civilization could understand. Sarah smiled, remembering their first encounter with the station. They weren't looking for perfect students. They were looking for those willing to learn, to change, to grow. Humanity didn't succeed because we were stronger or smarter, we succeeded because we never stopped adapting. The council chamber's adaptive architecture responded to the mood of its occupants, its patterns shifting to reflect the flow of ideas. The gathered species had begun their own evolution, inspired by humanity's example and guided by Shaper wisdom. The galaxy is entering a new age, Sarah concluded. Not an age of conquest or competition, but of evolution and adaptation. The Shapers didn't leave us weapons or power, they left us understanding. And understanding, combined with the will to adapt, is the greatest power of all. As the council session ended, Sarah watched the various species mingling, sharing ideas and perspectives in ways that would have been impossible months ago. Humanity had given them more than access to ancient knowledge, they had shown them that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to change. The Celestia's warning light waited in orbit, its adaptive hull reflecting the light of distant stars. It was no longer just a ship, it was a symbol of what humanity had brought to the galaxy, the understanding that every challenge was an opportunity to evolve, every obstacle a chance to adapt and grow stronger. The age of stagnation was over. The age of endless evolution had begun. And somewhere, perhaps, the Shapers were watching their students take their first steps toward joining them in the infinite dance of adaptation and change.